Hello and welcome to Module 9 of SMART Board training. This module is all about taking content that was originally created in PowerPoint and importing it into Smart Notebook so you can use it with all the other tools that Notebook provides. Let's take a look at our learning targets. So in Smart Notebook, I can import an existing PowerPoint presentation so it becomes a .notebook file, and you'll see it's actually slide for slide. Each slide becomes a page in .notebook file, and then you can manipulate it from there. I can edit the text and images from my PowerPoint so they fit on each page. You'll see when the import happens, not everything comes over neat and tidy, and there's some things to resize and to change the location of, just to make it look the way you want it to in Smart Notebook. I can understand not all attributes of my PowerPoint presentation will convert to Notebook. These are things like transitions from slide to slide, and animations and links don't end up coming over as the way they were in PowerPoint. The deal is you've got to work around these limitations of importing a PowerPoint presentation by adding appear and disappear animations, adding links to objects that were links before. There is no way to do transitions between pages in Smart Notebook, so hopefully you're not too wed to those transitions. I can add a screenshot of a PowerPoint slide to a new page. Of course, just understanding that there will be limits to editing it because it comes over as just an image. I can use the transparent background display option to write and add objects on top of a document, presentation, or website. And I mentioned not just a PowerPoint presentation, but basically anything. There's a way to kind of put a blank version, I should say a transparent version of Notebook on top of anything on the screen. And then so when I'm writing, I'm actually writing in Notebook, it's just invisible. I know that probably seems confusing, but we'll see that and hopefully make it clear. Also, I can understand the advantages and disadvantages of interacting with applications that are underneath that transparent background, as opposed to just working directly with them like I did in Module 8. If you remember, we worked directly with things shown from the document camera. We worked directly with PDF documents, with websites on a browser, with Microsoft Word and PowerPoint applications. So there's another way to put ink on top of that stuff, and it's using what's called the transparent background. So we'll see that and talk about the differences there. All right, let's get started. Now let's start by importing an existing PowerPoint presentation file into Smart Notebook, thus becoming a .notebook file. So I'd say your first step is to have a PowerPoint presentation file. Could be one that you created, one that you've downloaded, one that a colleague has shared with you. But you've got to have it and you've got to know where it is. For this example, I've got one on my desktop that I'm going to use, but it could be located wherever you store your stuff. So you want to be in Smart Notebook and go up to this File menu and go to Import, the third option down. So as I touch Import, it asks me if I want to save changes to Module 9, because this is actually going to take the place of the current presentation, the current .notebook file that's up right now. So I'll say yes, and then it's looking for a PowerPoint file. I've got one on my desktop, so it's right here for me to click on. So I can tap it once and hit open, or just double tap it, and we'll get this message that says that file conversion is in progress. And the funny thing is, it actually will open PowerPoint, and you can kind of watch it go, one by one, grabbing these slides so it can put them into .notebook. So it's a little eerie to kind of watch it take control, but it won't alter your original presentation at all. It'll close it when it's done, and then just load it up as a .notebook file. Now, you do want to save that. You notice it gives me an odd name by default, so remember your save button there, and you might want to rename it something different. So I'll just cancel for example purposes. But here's where I'm kind of going through slide by slide and altering it to make it fit into this new format and to make it work for me. So we can see right off the bat, the first slide came over pretty good. I think I had tilted that a little bit, so I can add that effect in there. this was to be an index card, like an example of an index card. For some reason, the box around it has disappeared, so I can go into my shapes and add that box. So, just kind of gives you practice with editing tools. I want to go back to selector to square that up if I can get a hold of it. There we go. And, maybe I want all of this text down, and it kind of depends on if you're working on the screen or on the computer, whether, of course, you're using touch gestures or just the mouse. And let's see here. Again, just kind of editing, maybe pulling some things down if I notice some white space there. Just kind of squaring things up so they work for me. I'll go on to the next slide. Now, this was a learning target slide where as I advanced, each one popped up one at a time to discuss. As it came over, those animations are gone. So a workaround for that would be, well, one of two things. I could use the trick where I put white boxes over each one and make them disappear one at a time. Or I can make them appear using animation as well. The fact that it took this as all one text box, you can see this is all one object. For me, it's going to be more convenient to just add those white boxes over and make them disappear one at a time. So let me see if I can do that real quick. Again, I'm in shape mode, so I'm just adding a shape here, and you'll just kind of find what works for you. And so there are my three shapes. Oh, I'm going to make this one a little bigger. Okay, so, and to select all three of these, it's not as simple as just drawing a box over them, because that'll probably, well, let's see. If I try to just draw a big box, oh, you see, it's kind of hard to get that top box selected without getting all the words selected as well. It looks like it wants to select the whole text box before getting this individual box. So this is where the button control comes in handy. I'm going to hold control on my keyboard and just tap each, there we go, icon, or click each icon with a mouse, each object I should say that I want to change. So with all three of those selected, I can change the color to white. I can take away the fill, which is, or the line color, so make those both white there, and it basically looks like it all disappeared. But what I also want to do, and I can keep those three selected, again holding control, and I know where they are, those three, I can go to my properties, object animation. I want this stuff to fade out, to disappear, and I want that when the object is clicked. So it's not as fancy as the fly-in animation that I had going on in PowerPoint, but now I can, again, direct attention one at a time. Well, that wasn't exactly what I expected. Let's try that again. Direct attention one at a time by just tapping where I know it's going to be, and those white boxes disappear. So again, it's kind of slide by slide making these changes. Well, this is pretty much a mess. So this will take a little work. It was the alphabet nicely sized, but basically it all came over as too big. So I'm going to take each image and shrink it down. And sometimes it's a better idea to go too small to begin with, because then at least you can organize it all and then make it bigger. So again, just kind of working away. And you'll probably find sometimes it's worth this work to get the extra Dot Notebook tools available to you. Sometimes it's not worth it. Sometimes it's just, you're fine using it in PowerPoint for what it does. It really just depends on what you want. Let's see, we got some stuff stuck down there. Okay, so now everything's tiny, but everything is there. There's nothing missing and nothing is overlapping. So here's where I do the work of just kind of making it all look around the same size. and so on and so on. So there's the beginning of my nice clean looking alphabet. And then, once I got it all straight and filling the box, and let me mention this other tip, because I'm on the board, it's using the resolution that it obviously will use when I'm teaching. If I'm on my computer screen and I'm trying to, format things and size them right, that's where you can right-click on the desktop. So I'm going to hit that button that makes the next tab a right-click. Right-click on the desktop, hit screen resolution, and you want to put the resolution in 1024 by 768. By default on your laptop or computer screen, it's probably a higher resolution, and it's probably a wide screen aspect ratio. So you want to do 1024 by 768 because that's what your board will kick your computer into once you project your lessons. So of course it's there now, but I could drop down and click that 1024 by 768 and hit OK, and there's another OK to hit to keep the changes. So I knew that I was formatting it correctly, because you don't want to do the work twice of making this all fit on your computer. Then you go to plug it into the board and everything's off the screen or leaving space at the bottom. So that's just a little way to save time there. Okay, so again, I could go through and do this to all of them, just trying to kind of match them up to where they look all the same size. Once I did that work, I would definitely select it all, and this is pretending that I did the whole thing, and select it all, tap one of those drop down buttons, and probably lock it all in place, and then I wouldn't have to worry about, oh, it's locked, obviously, wouldn't have to worry about it getting messed up again. So again, just tapping through the slides. Here was supposed to look like an index card again, so probably add another rectangle. Looks like it's there from before. So now it looks a little more like an index card. I would probably also, probably don't need to make that any bigger. Maybe make this text bigger. Something about making text bigger though, you can use this handle, and sometimes it works great for me, like a little change that works pretty good. Sometimes it seems to get pretty whacked out, and I noticed that if I double tap on that text, now I can actually highlight it all, and this is kind of easier to do on a computer probably, and then mess with the text size there. And you might have more luck that way. It's just kind of what works for you. So that will make it all 36, and maybe that was a little too big, so I can back off there. Maybe make that 32. Okay. All right, so it's getting closer to what I was looking for. Of course, probably have to move that around a bit, edit my box around it. All right, but we're getting there. Again, it's kind of just a process of clicking through the slides, clicking through the pages, and locking things down, seeing where it is, moving it around if need be. Let's take a look at this. So this is kind of messed up because it meant to be an animation, like, yo soy was not there to begin with, but then it flew in and these things moved up. So one option would be, instead of trying to worry about an animation, is just making it into two separate slides. So I'll go here, and this is the slide that I'm working on. If I do a drop down there, I can actually clone that page, duplicate that page with that second option down. So basically I'll make a before animation and an after animation, and make them both look cleaned up. So I won't need the answer. The answer was yo soy there, so I can delete that, and then basically just square this up, make this a little smaller. So it's like, that would be the intro to the question, ¿Quién eres tú? And then the answer would include, or the next slide I should say, would include the answers. So I can make that a little smaller and have yo soy come up. Now as I bounce back and forth, we can see the answer has popped up. I could have, of course, done that in one slide and just had the answer, animate to appear underneath, and that would be, again, using those properties and object animation with with the right thing selected. It would have to be the answer selected as I animated Yo Soy to appear from nowhere. Let me quick show that off. So under the Properties tab with Yo Soy selected, I can go to Object Animation. This one I want to, let's see, I like fade in when it flies in. The usefulness for this is a little mysterious to me because fly in, if it weren't there and it flew in, that would make sense to me. But even when I go away and come back, it's like sitting there, and when I tap it, it flies back in. Well, to me, that's pretty useless, honestly, because the answer was there to begin with. So I like fade in. So with that selected, I'm gonna go back to Object Animation under my Properties tab and change that, change fly in to fade in. Now, as I click off and back on, now it thinks I want to change the menu. Okay, so we are getting to that slide. We don't see it, but then if I tap where I know it is, it can appear. So that's another way to go about it. It's basically using the methods that you've learned in previous modules to edit what was a PowerPoint presentation to make it work. Now this actually came out okay. I probably adjusted a little far over just because there was a little black space on either side. So this is just kind of a slideshow. So a lot of times if you have pictures that you want to show off, it's just a matter of moving them, resizing them so they fill the screen the way you want to. Of course, this came over a little too big, so I can change that, center that. And that almost worked. There we go. So anyway, when you see my words are kind of off there, so yeah, it's just like little changes to make, sometimes bigger than others, but I can definitely guarantee you it won't come over perfectly. Just the content is there, but it's changed and it needs a little tweaking. So we've got pictures. Again, each one of these I'm seeing, I should be kind of moving up to be in view. This is obviously my day one presentation. Yes. The song, it fit, so probably wouldn't mess with that one at all. This is actually two different pictures that I'd probably want to tweak a little bit. Like that maybe. Just a little smaller. Really like the pinch to zoom gesture for this stuff. So maybe something like that. It's my homework screen, so I would just kind of make it fit for Smart Notebook. And now another completely different method of getting content from a PowerPoint presentation into Smart Notebook. You can see I'm back in PowerPoint, and there was a lot of work to be done to get this slide to show right in Smart Notebook, because basically, these are all different images, and they came across as oddly sized and formatted. So another option is to basically take a screenshot of this slide, and then it becomes just a big image that I can import into a single page of Smart Notebook. The big limitation to doing this is any interactivity on that slide definitely goes away. Because it's just one big image, so you won't get multiple objects, you'll just get one big object, an image of that slide. So we can do it one of two ways. If you'll recall, there's one way to take a screen grab, and that's going into my little smart notification icon and going to, where are we? Screen capture toolbar. And the thing about this is I want to actually have my presentation page as big as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and slideshow, and from current slide, make that nice and big. And then I want to capture it, and I can just capture the whole thing. I think either of these two buttons will work, because this one captures a window, this one captures the whole screen. I'm sure it's the whole screen, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit that. Now this is interesting because I am on two screens. It's asking me to select the display I'd like to capture. Well, there's still only one, so that's kind of a silly thing, but I'll go ahead and hit OK. And this is nice because it went right into Notebook. We can see it started a new page in Notebook, and here it is. And I don't need to worry about messing with each individual part because it all just came together as one image. I might need it to resize it a bit to make it all fit. Just a hair. Well, let me grab this. I've noticed that you can get smaller steps of resizing when you do it from this corner here. Alright, so obviously I'm trying to be a little too perfect. But yeah, let's leave it at that. The odd thing is, notice what happened. I got my little, and you see it hanging on right here, because technically I'm still in a presentation. You know, if I click this down here, comes back to a presentation. That's why I have this little toolbar here. So I would have had to work around that a bit more by going into my, where is, keep it rolling. My Smart Ink settings, if you can remember from last module, we messed with these Smart Ink settings. So if I was really bothered by that little icon, I could go and uncheck the Show Smart Ink toolbar. So that would be a way to get it completely cleaned up, because as it is in Smart Notebook, there is no getting rid of that little icon because it's not really an icon, it's just part of a big image. So let me go back here. We'll see if it plays nice. I'll go ahead and try to open it back up. We don't see that icon, but of course I didn't. I'm just going to keep it rolling because this is the kind of stuff you'll go through. I didn't foresee needing that screen capture toolbar again. So let me get that back up. That's the box that should stay as I go back to my current slide. Let me go again, capture new image. Yes, I want it the only display that we've got. And that's where it will kick me back into Smart Notebook. And now we can see, let me close that. You know, this is the one where that icon held on. This is the one without it. So of course, being the perfectionist I am, I would have taken the work to redo it with that option checked in Smart Ink settings. So, but again, realize the big limitation is that this is just one big image, and you know, you can treat it as such, but you definitely can't break it apart like you can when it comes over as separate objects. And now let's see one more completely different method for interacting with PowerPoint and other things, but still using Smart Notebook. Basically, we're going to introduce this transparent background display option, which will take Notebook, and it's kind of easier to understand what it does by having some content on the slide. It'll take Notebook, and instead of a white background, it'll be an invisible background. And that's this display option up here, and I want to go to transparent background. And now it's just a mess, you know, because I've got all of the things that weren't transparent, you know, all that text, the learning targets, as well as my little arrow. But what's underneath it is showing. So of course it looks very messy at this point. But imagine, now notice this is part of Notebook. That's actually a floating toolbar. That's how I advance the slides. So we can see that until I get to a blank page in Smart Notebook, which I hope I'm not losing you here. Let me show you where I am now. On a blank page, you know, these are the ones that we just imported, the two different ways, one with that little icon being part of the image, one without. And then we've got a blank page. And so as I go back to transparent display, now it's kind of like everything disappeared, but what's showing is what was underneath that Notebook window. So I can still interact. That's the kind of weird part. I can still interact with what's underneath it to a limited degree. So it's kind of like just test out what will work. Most buttons and things will still be clickable. So I can go to slideshow and I can play the slideshow, we'll say from current slide. So now what we have is is PowerPoint playing with kind of an invisible version of .notebook over top of it. So the result is very similar though as before, where I could write on what's on my presentation, except the fact that it doesn't get saved on to the actual slide in PowerPoint. If you can think about the fact that when I'm writing on this, I'm still technically writing in Smart Notebook. It's kind of a hard thing to digest, but this will kind of prove it. If I go back to the first .notebook slide, there's my learning targets. Everything's looking real messy. And then now everything's looking odd because it's basically the image from my Smart Notebook and then on top of the image from PowerPoint. Have I lost you yet? But now it's cleaner because there's nothing in Smart Notebook. It's just a blank slide, but it's transparent so I can see what's underneath it. And then if I were to, I can do two different things. I can close out the display, and there we kind of see back in Smart Notebook, that was just the circle. And then back in my PowerPoint slide, that writing isn't there. If I escape and, there are all my slides, but I think I can escape to back into editor mode, you won't see that pin input because it technically didn't happen in PowerPoint, it technically happened in Smart Notebook. So again, let me keep that on editor mode, go back here to transparent. We can see I can still modify the location. I can use the selector tool, I can use all my tools. The only real disadvantage is, I have to use this little floating box instead of my, nice toolbar that lives up there or down there in Smart Notebook. But I have noticed these things will actually work. So if you really want, some kind of cool pin over other applications, this is the way to do it. In Smart Notebook with that transparent background. And you can even get all those tools like shapes and lines and of course the eraser, the screen shade. So a lot of those tools that you might have liked in Smart Notebook, you can do over top of other applications. This could be a website under here, and I would have those options of all the fancy highlighter. We've seen that work pretty well in the other methods. But using this little triple, this is a floating toolbar, so this little triple dot will give you all those different tools that will actually work because you're technically in Smart Notebook, just Smart Notebook is invisible, it's transparent, and you get to kind of write over on top of whatever window is underneath Smart Notebook. I can feel the confusion happening. Guys, just feel free to contact me. I would love to go over this stuff again, or of course, rewatching parts of the video will help. I think by nature it's just a confusing thing, but hopefully I've made it somewhat clear.